to order. Thank you, guests, for being here. Let's see. Since you guys are all here, probably for the Wilson's project, we're gonna let you guys go first, so we don't take up all your time. We don't have any minutes from last month. We're waiting for Tim to send them along, so we can skip that agenda item. And
Would it help for us to go around the room
Yeah.
and,
yeah,
Scott Conti.
Margot Jones?
John Celia, chair.
Dave Brock.
There's the man.
Hey.
Just in time, Kim.
Waiting for the introduction.
I know.
Right on time.
You were right on time, literally.
Come on now. Okay.
Yes,
None other than Kim Black,
Tim Black.
secretary.
And I'm Matt Abbey.
Doug Mayo.
And so that's us as the commission. And all you folks are here regarding the Wilson's project. Let's call it that, I guess. No, and you,
Just
ma'am?
Roots.
Just Roots.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. And Tim, you want a second to get yourself ready for notes?
I just need to pass could somebody have a blank sheet of paper? Can you pass it around, put your names and associations on it, please, for the minutes? Okay, just pass it around.
Oh, yeah. Oh, I probably should have given you the whole notebook, huh?
Yeah, that would be good.
No, just go
Have something to write on.
and just go around the room.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. And I apologize for the mask, but I had bronchitis, so I'm protecting you.
Thank you, Tim.
What a guy.
We'll go ahead and send that whole thing along, just so there's something to write on.
You good, Tim?
What's that?
Okay. Okay. Well, so if you guys want to have just start your presentation, I think we're good to go with that. You know, this I would say this is the most visitors we've ever had in this room, anyway.
Except for the public here.
Yeah, except right in this little room. So I think we might be at occupancy. But please go ahead. Thanks for coming.
Do you want to go first?
Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Great. Hi, everyone. Thanks for having us tonight. My name is Julia Snell. I'm a project manager with the Community Builders, so we're the housing developer for the Wilson's redevelopment project. Here together with John, who will introduce himself shortly. We're really excited to have this project here before you. I know a lot of people are probably familiar with the previous iterations of the Wilson's redevelopment, so we're really thrilled to be brought into this. TCB is a nonprofit, affordable, and mixed-income housing developer. We work across the country, but have a long history in Greenfield, starting from the 1980s when we purchased Leiden Woods. Recently, that project went through a complete revitalization, and we're really excited to be able to do more work in Greenfield with this project, especially together with the co-op. It's really, you can see this as a really wonderful partnership at a landmark building in the downtown, really, that we can work off of some really wonderful work that's already been happening. So we're really excited to be here tonight and share with you our plans as it relates to the unveiling the historic restoration of the project tonight. And with me tonight, I have from the Community Builders, our Senior Design and Construction Manager, Chris Lejaudry, John Kelleher from Epsilon, who's our historic consultant who has been with this project through lots of different partners, and then Henry Albin from JWA, and Jeff Manning from JWA, who's our architect for the housing portion of the redevelopment. And I will go to John.
I'll show you.
Thank you.
All right. John Williams, General Manager of the Franklin Community Co-op. For those associated who know the co-op, locally downtown, 5,000 member owners in the community. We've been looking for a new location for, I don't know, about 8 years. And we've tried a bunch of different places, and we've been working on Wilson's for about 3. We were moving right along until the pandemic altered that path, as many other paths. And we finally were able to find a developer that aligned with our values as well. And we're able to put together a project that we know that can help enrich the community. And that's what we have here. There's a lot of work gone into how do we make this as many win-wins as possible for every stakeholder. And as it relates to you all here, I'm super excited because for the whole conversation's always been how do we restore that building to its historic presentation and have a dynamic impact on downtown. And so we have all that information here to share with you. So I look forward to everybody's questions, comments, and input as we continue. It's a kind of process we got to go through. And I have Tom Douglas here. And Tom has worked on this building for over 12 years, I think now, from the hotel as well.
Like,
Yeah, well,
Yeah, what's the best?
yeah, it's great. I mean, I think,
So-
yeah, please just continue, and
Sure.
you guys have all lots of graphics and things like that. So, well, run through the whole thing.
Great.
I'm sure you're
So-
gonna need lots of practice. You're gonna be
Done.
repeating this presentation many
Well,
times.
3 or 4 times.
Go ahead.
So thank you for having us. Again, my name is Doug Kelleher. I'm a historic preservation consultant with Aspen Associates. I'm a principal of our firm, and I head up our historic preservation practice. And I have a long history with this building, going back to, I checked earlier, it was 2009, when we were first pursuing historic tax credits with Kevin O'Neill as part of the downtown, I forget the name that we had for it, but was the time when all the other projects were renovated utilizing historic tax credits. We worked with Margot and her firm from the very beginning, and when it was originally, Kevin had envisioned a sort of a reduced or condensed commercial operation with office space on the upper floors. Then over the years that evolved into a hotel use, which Tom was involved in, working with some hotel developers. And we were very successful in getting a substantial amount of historic tax credits awarded to the project, and as the project sort of evolved and uses changed, filed the appropriate amendments so that those credits could still flow with the project. And that's what we envisioned doing here with the new residential use for TCB and the co-op's use of the ground floor commercial space. So it's one thing that's been sort of consistent throughout the sort of the life of the project is sort of the intention to preserve the historic character defining features of the building. Obviously the building has changed a lot over the years. It's pretty remarkable how it's grown in size and how the interior has changed and how the exterior has changed. But really the focus has always been is to sort of bring it back to, if not the original, close to the original appearance of the building. And we have the benefit of many historic images that's sort of been used as guiding the design of the storefronts, the entrances, the windows. Some of you may or may not be aware, all of the original windows survive under the metal panel system on the front, which is pretty cool. It's all sort of hidden behind what was display areas and racks along the exterior walls. So excited to see sort of those openings opened up again, obviously with new windows. But I think it would probably be good for maybe Henry to start off to sort of talk about sort of the changes that are going to be a result of the residential use, and then maybe Tom can talk a little bit about the changes that the co-op is proposing. But it's interesting in that we sort of have two different developers, two different architects all working on the same building, but they're obviously working in a very collaborative manner. It's a very exciting project to finally see come to fruition. So with that, Henry, if you want to take over.
So we've been working on primarily from the second floor up on the project. The first floor being going over to the Greenfields Market. So we are proposing 64, 65 units of housing going from studio apartments all the way up to 3 bedrooms, utilizing the second through fifth floors of the project. There's also, the historic part of the project will house 40 of those units. There is also a proposed addition on the back of the building on Chapman Street, which would house the remaining 24 units. As part of the renovation of the project, we are proposing the demolition of the 1970s addition. It was on the back of the original building. It does not exist on the first floor, it exists on the second. Oh,
The picture down on the, yeah.
so back there is the 70s addition.
This is plan. And yellow is the part that will get removed.
Yes. So this is the 1970s edition. The current loading dock goes underneath it. So it's the second and third floors, and then does not exist on the fourth or fifth. So it'd be the removal of that, as well as the current elevator that serves the 5 stories, with a new elevator core being built in its place that will house 2 elevators instead of 1 that will serve the upper floors, and then the lower floors will still be served by existing elevators that will remain to serve specifically the Greenfields market. At the front of the building, we're proposing restoring the 2-story storefront, which will be community space and a community room for the residents of the new project. We are also proposing the restoration of the monumental stair at the front of the building, which still exists behind the current storefront. It's just been covered over on the second floor, so we are going to open it back up and restore it so that it'll be a means of entrance to the residential portion of the building. We are, as part of the historic tax credit program, we're looking at keeping the majority of the interior halls on the upper floors where they still exist, and utilizing the spaces as much as possible without damaging the historic nature of the upper floors.
And to that point, as some of you may or may not be aware, the original hotel rooms still survive on those upper floors. So as part of the tax credit, there is a requirement to sort of keep the original historic circulation on those floors, and obviously the historic entrance down on Main Street.
So just to clarify, so you're looking to rehab and reuse those old hotel rooms?
Correct.
Some of them or all of them, or?
Combining them to make residential units.
Oh, right.
Where we can, we are saving those walls as demising walls between the apartments, and where we can't save them, we intend on leaving part of the wall there to show a visual reminder of where the wall used to be, where we have to remove them.
And the circulation and corridors will remain on the 4th and 5th where they are today.
As well as all the existing door openings in those walls. Those will have faux doors where we are not using the opening, but will still remain looking as the original openings did.
Cool.
Can you show us on the plan?
As well as the transoms will stay as well.
How many rooms were there in the hotel?
73.
I'm gonna
Wow.
relocate to
And also with the
better
demo
better
of
show
this
spot.
1970s edition, we'll be restoring the historic window openings that existed prior to that reconstruction.
That seems
Oh,
like
Which, when you're in the building, you can see the brick outline of where the windows once
Wow.
were. So it's really being restored to its historic layout.
So
prior to
when
that.
you say historic, what year are you talking about? What's your
So-
target year?
So our target year is about 1920. So this double-story storefront went up in 1912, and I believe was infilled in the late 1930s. The top portion was infilled in the 1930s, and then was infilled again in the 1940s, and then in the 1965 is when they put on the metal clad facade. So we are restoring it to the 1912 version, which is the double story. And before 1912, it was brick windows like everywhere else on the facade, except that has been completely removed. So it would be very difficult to try and match that and have it really look good. Whereas this is a much easier way of matching, and also really provides a really nice monumental feel to the building.
So is it 1912 or 1920?
20, I
You
think.
said both.
1912 is when this went up.
Yeah, but which target date? 20, right? 1920 is the target? That you're trying to go back to
They're
that?
saying
this
between
year?
1912 and 1930 would be the answer.
Correct. Yes. Between 1912 and I believe it's 1938. I believe is
Okay.
when that facade existed.
Can you just tell us what the dates of the various blocks and buildings are?
So the Main Street front was 1876 with Wilson's moving in 1896. The 5-story section in the back is 1903. The original wood section there burned down in 1902. In the 1954 I believe is when they bridged over or filled in the alleyway between this building and the building at the far back. And then 1970 is 1974 is when they did a small addition onto the back, and 1977 is when they did the major addition onto the back. From my
That was the American Hotel the whole time?
No, it was the American. It was the American House up to, I believe, the 1930s. Then it became, or it was the Devon House.
Right.
Devon Hotel became the American House. The American House became the Greenfield Hotel. I don't know the exact dates of when that switched over, but it's been 3 different
Right.
variations of a hotel over its years. And the original American House had over 100 rooms. After the 1902 portion burned down and they rebuilt it, they had about approximately 73 rooms.
So there was a hotel and Wilson's at the same time.
Yes, Wilson's entered 20 years after the initial building was built approximately, and initially it was just this storefront, and each time the hotel got rebranded, it expanded.
Right, it was just the corner shop.
So over the years it kept doubling in size. Every time the hotel changed hands, the Wilsons would gobble up a little bit more of the building and double, until finally they just took the entire building, I believe in the early 60s. So this is the 4th floor and the 5th floor. So the partitions run this direction, and as much as possible we are reusing the existing, actually everywhere we're using the existing doorways as our entryways into the apartments, keeping the existing hall walls things as they are, and then where possible keeping the walls going this way, or at least demarcating where those walls used to be. Any other questions?
But, so there are historic tax credits involved, and are there any Mass Historic grants or other?
Currently, we just envision the Mass and federal historic tax credits as the historic funding.
Just the tax credit?
Yeah, for the historic funding for the project.
What
And
is?
that
Oh, I'm
process,
sorry,
can
go
I
ahead.
just clarify? So, Doug, you know, it's an elaborate process, and Mass Historic will look at your plans at some point when you submit them, and then they'll come back with lots of comments, and they'll ask us for our opinion. So in effect, what we're doing tonight is to formulate the Greenfield Historic Commission opinion, or else start formulating.
Start.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, the thought is that this is just sort of the beginning of the conversation with the commission. We're not looking for a letter of support or anything like that this evening, but we will be back as the plans further developed, and certainly in advance of us filing. So what we'll be doing is amending the existing the pending application that's been pending for quite some time now, for the last hotel use, for the new proposed uses. So we'll be back with further developed plans.
And there's state and federal
Correct.
tax credits. But the federal tax credit doesn't do as much review. Am I correct?
Oh no, it's
I'm wrong.
gotten
Okay.
quite even more stringent than it was
Okay.
14 years ago when we started this. Yeah. So yeah, there'll definitely be an extensive review process
And there'll be conversations between Mass Historic and
in the National Park
National Park
Service.
Service,
Yes.
yeah. But everything has to comply with the Secretary's
Correct.
Interior's standards and their interpretation.
Exactly.
Okay.
Can I ask a question? In the kind of this long lifetime of the tax credit application process, has this group, the Greenfield Historical Commission, ever voiced an opinion on the project previously?
Yes. The Greenfield Historical Commission has provided many letters of support for the project, going back to the original office use and then the hotel. So.
What is the facade? What's the structure of the facade?
The current facade?
Yeah.
So the current metal is held on, it's got structural steel behind it that is clipped into the brick at various points. But it's kept, I believe, about 6 inches off of the brick.
Right. And what is that actually? Is that enamel steel, or what is that?
It's perforated steel panel.
Perforated steel panel?
Like the windowsills, were they modified when they put that on, or are they intact? I've heard those might have been.
The stone sills on the
Yeah.
exterior, They are mostly intact. It's hard to tell where those clip points occurred. So until we take off that facade, we won't know if they went through any of the sills.
Yeah. And the second question is, could you show where the elevator, what you're doing with the elevators? You said you're taking the one out and replacing it with two.
Yes. So this is where the existing elevator is that serves the 5-story section.
Right.
And so we're taking out that elevator core and building this new core that will have 2 passenger elevators.
I have a question. There's been some confusion or about the use of the living quarters. Is it mixed use,
Mixed income.
mixed income?
Rental.
So the whole project is mixed use with commercial on the basement and first floor and residential on floors 2 through 5.
Right. I guess what I'm is that there was an allusion toward not an allusion, but it was alluded to that there might be low cost housing.
This is affordable housing. Yep, it's mixed income, so it's going to be a wide range of housing available to those who already live in Greenfield. We want to offer housing to a wide range of folks.
Okay, thank you. It was great to hear.
One other question. That facade, the perforated skin, have you guys had any thought to preserving any piece of that or any part of that for, posterity or anything else? Is that often when we see these projects, sometimes people will say, well, we're gonna keep part of this in either integrated into the structure, or we're going to put, make it available to somebody else to hang on to, or something just as part of the town's history, because that has been up there for quite a few decades.
Yes. There's no intent to preserve it on the building itself.
No.
But it's certainly one of those things that we would be happy to talk to other businesses or boards about preserving and keeping in some fashion for its.
Well, for example, in your meeting room, you could take one letter and a panel and put it on the wall.
Definitely.
Great idea. Yeah,
See?
no, we
That's
definitely
one
are
thing I'm talking about.
actively thinking of ways to honor. I grew up locally, so I remember Wilson's, right? The
I
big
just
sign
want
with
to
the
plant
facade.
that idea in your minds, because we hate to see stuff just disappear as if it never existed, and like Rooney's, for example, just went up in a puff of smoke and it was gone. But it is. A lot of people think it's pretty ugly, but it is part of the town's history.
It's a great idea to preserve a
I
letter.
think the opportunity to do that is a little more available in the store format, especially where there's a substantial amount of traffic. There'll also be a store level community room.
Sure.
And that'll be a great opportunity for us to
Right.
kind of pull this history in. Where at the same time we're looking at how do we incorporate our own organization's history in downtown, and then how do we take even
Sure.
a longer legacy. So we're looking at that in the design of our community
Sure.
space itself.
You may be aware that we were instrumental in saving the bas reliefs off the old Ford dealership and incorporating them in the new parking garage. And that was the kind of thing I'm thinking about. Yeah.
Agreed.
Well, why don't we hear about the first floor?
How about now, Tom?
Go up.
So, just a quickie.
We'll do this, Tom.
Okay, here, I'll just set it right.
There we go.
So what you see in dark blue is what Wilson's occupied, and these were the 3 tenant spaces here. So now Wilson's is going to take this entire space here, and this is the part that'll
Not
get knocked
Wilson's.
down.
Good for them.
All right, still hanging on to some really old things.
We're already incorporating it in.
Great, good.
Okay.
The Wilson's co-op.
So there were 3 elevators in the building. This one in the front, a little bitty one, and then Kevin put in a bigger one here, a more modern one. And then there was the 5-story elevator that went, all the way up, accessed every single floor. So we talked about removing that one right there. We're going to keep this one here. That's the one that meets building code, and we may keep this one. I'm not really sure yet. We're thinking about having some basement retail, it'll give John the opportunity to do a little bit different kind of sales down there. But it's still kind of up in the air, and we're still in the middle of designing all the equipment that's going to go in the store. But they'll still be, we'll maintain the entry in the front, we'll have an entry in the back. We're going to take out these walls that are shown in yellow here. These are walls, brick-bearing walls that we're going to remove. So these are not too bad back here. These up here are solid brick-bearing walls that are between the existing tenant spaces. So removing those is not an easy feat, and it's going to push us into some earthquake structural moves that will happen in a few different places in the building. For instance, let me get the new plan. So this is, bring it up here. This is our equipment plan. So the blue part is what we're adding here. So that's going to be a new single-story addition to the back of the building. And then this is the 5-story elevator lobby core that Henry talked about that goes all the way up.
So that's all brand new.
Yeah, this is all brand new.
Gotcha.
And this is the main entry to those upper floors, for the apartments. But this blue part represents our addition, and it's all going to be back of house space. So the circulation through here will be we're going to build a bigger vestibule out there. There's no vestibule. Well, there's a little bitty vestibule inside here that we need the interior space for retail. So we're going to build an outside vestibule, and then we're going to have kind of a wooden heavy timber like porch that I've seen these in many grocery stores where they keep all their seasonal stuff outside, and all kinds of things that can be outside and help to show people what's inside too and attract people in. So there'll be cash registers here, there'll be dairy, produce here, dairy, the elevator, that's the one that I said would still be in use, and it has, we'll be able to access it from both sides. This is the 5-story stair that I'm not really sure what the fate of this is going to be. It'll give us good access between basement and first, but we have to cut off, in order to secure the co-op from the upper level apartments, we're going to have some type of some system that doesn't allow the people upstairs to come down into this stair, because it would land you right in the middle of the space. This is all, like I said, grocery, maybe a stair right here, a new interior vestibule, and we'll maintain that canopy that's protecting out there now. This is the stair Henry talked about that they're going to rehab, bring it back to its original, functional use and the way it was designed. We'll probably put a basement stair underneath there. And this is all going to be a cafe space. So John talked about a community room here, and so this will be a relatively separate space with some bathrooms. But this is going to be a much more open cafe space. It's not going to be your traditional cafe where you can walk up to the, a waitress and get service. It's going to be a little bit different than what norm is. So you're going to get grab-and-go food here. You can order coffee and juice here. You got to pay for it at the register, and then you can go sit down here. But we're really working hard to make this a space that, is an active space, community space that people can see and be seen from the sidewalk. So we're rebuilding this entire storefront here with all new entrances. So this will be, kind of continues the use that John currently has of his little cafe and at the front of his store, but and enlarges it and it activates it more. We're talking about maybe having a lunch counter there. So something that, you see them in co-ops a lot of times where they just kind of stick them in the corner and it's like a leftover space. We're really trying to make this an interesting functional space that will help bring people in here.
Tom, can I just add to that just why we're on it, because most of you guys are familiar with the store that we're in.
Sure.
Third space is kind of part of our mission anyways for everyone, as a gathering place for the community. So one of the goals too, that by doing this, is to create handicap accessibility on both sides that didn't exist previously to flow in, and we already know produce is where a majority of our local suppliers come in, so you can see a substantial expansion into that. And then when you get to these areas here, this is all about what it means to be in our community, because this is our community space. We know for the longest time that we didn't have a handicap accessible community space upstairs. It wasn't, and then we rented a place at 170 Main, it's too small. But we wanted to add in a larger space and then put in a test kitchen and a cooking station so we can incorporate and open ourselves up to the larger portion of the community than we already serve. So this, even though it's not retail, is a huge component of the setup. And what we see here is the difficulty is usually you build a square grocery store. This is more of a urban set. So the difficulty was, how do we give as much accessibility to parking to everyone and still get a truck in? And then how do we service a long store? That's really difficult, efficiency. So the flow of goods and people is the most important aspect, and that's why you see a kitchen set up here. And the design, as it looks a little strange with the 170 going, this is all about flow of goods. And then for the housing component, and I'll let them cover that, there's a nice courtyard and an access point there as well that will come through. So it really take this whole sense of community here, which is really foot traffic, prepared food, and then a really nice sense of community that gets added here as well, knowing that it's a public parking space and a skate park on the other side. So it makes this a little bit more dynamic, not just economically, but just for a sense of space, which is what Tom was referring to in our design.
Any thought to outside dining?
Yes, it's the city's property, so I'll try to license that similar to what I do now.
Yeah.
There is a little grass pad right there. There's currently a bee on that, but I'm going to look at what my options are up front. The design is cart traffic in the back and foot traffic to the front, so we would be reluctant to put too much for dining up into this area. There we'll look at how do we support, how do we even take it even further and support some of the local farmers by adding a place to sell goods right outside as well, which we try now, but it's the sidewalk.
Yeah.
It makes it a little tough.
Yeah.
Is there a site plan?
Of the site plan after.
Yes.
So I didn't, what John just went over real quickly, I didn't really mention this. You know, remember Wilson's did have a dock back here, a loading dock. We're taking that down, obviously. So we've got to build a new loading dock back here. It's going to be smaller than what they had, but the trucks will back up from Chapman down onto this dock, and they'll be.
Can you make that go this way?
Yeah.
So I have a question. So is that where the pit is right there?
This is where the current pit is, yes.
Wow, nice. That's
And you're saying
good.
that's.
It's like,
No, the pit is owned by a Mass Development.
The pit is part of this redevelopment project.
Yeah.
thanks for using the term the pit.
Yeah. Kevin and Neil own that land, so.
Victoria
Studio?
Yeah, Kevin had
Hey.
accumulated all the tax
Studios?
streets.
Is that the The foundation?
It was where the Victoria was.
They were
Yeah.
gonna build
Yeah.
the TV.
Anyway, yes.
So
Okay.
where do people, is there a side entrance too? Did I see that?
This
The
entrance
Davis
is
Street?
going away, so you'll
Mhm.
just have the
Okay.
entrances on the back and front.
Okay.
Yeah, a
And
third
where do
entrance
the
is too
co-op people park? I know this is
Yeah,
outside of
we'll
our
be-
purview.
It's
but-
okay, I can answer all that. We'll be utilizing the Wilson's old parking lot up by the Salvation Army
Sure.
at the time that we open. Of course, there's a parking lot right across the
You mean
street
right-
that's not available right now.
For
Yep, it'll be right up about here.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Because the back parking lot is for the residents.
no, the back parking lot is shared between co-op,
Yeah.
co-op patrons and residential, and I think John was referencing where your staff can park.
That's right, yeah, the staff's gonna
Oh,
park up here. This is a town lot, and we're working with the parking commission, the city, on how to open this up to get a better flow through Chapman Street as a whole, because we already know it's already congested. And we came up with a couple solutions, obviously that's for a different time in a meeting of how we might be able to improve that. And we're also looking for some support on like a first hour free in the parking lot for all downtown businesses, which solves all problems for a lot of different organizations, so.
And we're also designing in connectivity from that
That's right.
city lot through here, which I think your membership is used to utilizing city lots for parking.
Yeah, I mean, that's what we
Yeah.
have. We own 6 parking spaces right now. I mean, we have the city lot, and then we have the old Robbie Cohen grader lot that we use right now.
Another question.
Sure.
Across the street on Davis Street, the other side that used to be part of Wilson's as well. What's the plan with that?
I would love to have that space, but it's not available at this time.
Okay.
But I will continue to pursue that, I guess.
Okay.
I'm looking at it. Kevin and I are in constant dialogue all the time.
Okay, so they're still holding on to that, right?
Yeah, he still uses that space, and he's still utilizing the office building there, so it's I think
Actually,
it's
what's
largely-
your site plan holistically?
So, well, for the co-op's parking, the co-op's parking is from this line up. The residential parking is from that line down. There's secondary parking for the management staff of the residential portion of the project. Here with the loading dock access as well. The Greenfield Markets dumpsters are located here with the residential ones here. It's all going to be fenced in. There's going to be privacy fences along here for the courtyard, and also along in here to divide the properties from what's going to be a dispensary and the Taylor block. This is the new addition that is being added on. And at the back, it's going to connect across to the existing Wilson's building with a second floor connecting corridor that you'll be able to walk underneath to get into this more private courtyard space, with the main entry to the Wilson's part of the residential here, and to the new addition, and we'll have main access here. There's also several storefronts along Chapman Street. There are 3 of them currently in the project that will be flexible for lease space that are still being finalized.
And that's what I'm looking at here.
That's what you're looking at there. Yeah. As well as another entrance into the residential, and then finally right here we're actually providing a large indoor bike storage room that will have enough space for every resident to have bike storage.
Cool. Yeah.
I think it's great that there is retail in the new park.
Yeah, I like that.
on Chapman, yeah.
A lot of the new projects
I
have with
remember,
retail.
I remember the old retail that was there. Yeah.
I do want to comment, being the new, put my other hat on, being that new chair for Access to Disability Commission, that I'm very pleased that you're opening things up on both ends and making it easier for people, because the 15% of Greenfield is disabled. So that's a lot of people that use Greenfield downtown. And I've heard many over the last 5 years I've been on the commission, many complaints about entry into some of the Greenfield stores. So I'm happy to see that you're making a difference and adding in accessible accessible entries on both ends of the building.
Yeah, it's one of our core issues I have right now. I mean, besides the fact that we're just too busy and we've really beaten up that old JCPenney building more than it should be, we want to make sure that building is available to become something else that also enriches the community. That's one of the biggest impetus to making this move.
And the aisle widths between the grocery store fixtures is proposed to be 6 feet wide, so it should be ample space.
Great.
And just
Thank you very
for
much.
comparison purposes, how big is your space now?
We're going to, this will double our sales floor and triple our production space. And we're not talking about the basement just yet, because I'm working on whether, because moving people and product is a difficult thing, even though we're like, maybe we can restore housewares in the basement, like everyone was used to.
Oh, yeah.
But that
Which
also,
was awesome.
but cost is always an association. But for us, it was how do we improve the quality of life for our staff? Because right now we have a 150 square foot kitchen. We could fit 6 pallets in the back room, and we have a bakery that's not even the size of the corner right here, and we're doing all of our business that way. So really, one of the goals was how do we get people more space to move, but how do we get our staff able to function better, and how to create efficiency. So about double the square footage of the sales floor. We're going to double the size of our community room, and we'll about triple the size of our production space. And then our holding capacity, so we can forward buy, because right now we have a lot of trucks cranking through. we can utilize the basement for some more forward buying. We can minimize the amount of trucks that we have whipping into the store on a constant basis, and that'll help us do more wholesale accounts, so we can increase more local sales out into the community. So it's a pretty substantial shift for us.
I had a couple quick questions. One is about like the financial aspect, and since there's like so many different players involved, is there a structure in place so that the tax credits that come, you know, really benefit this integrated project as a whole and aren't like just, you know, have to be like earmarked to be used on one piece of this rather than another? So is is the financing all integrated?
So we're two separate projects. We will own, there'll be a residential condo and a commercial condo at the end of the day. Junk project is likely to move ahead, some time ahead of the housing project. So they're completely separately financed. So right now, the housing project is contemplating the use of the historic tax credits in a list of other financing resources. And I won't speak for John, but I know
Sure.
You're developing also your financing model
Yeah,
as
we're,
well.
one of the goals of a cooperative organization is to own. Members want to own their space, and that's the goal here. And we're working on our financial model now. Granted, where co-ops aren't seen the same as nonprofits, even though we do the work the same. So it's a little more unique structure. But that will be more information we'll be sharing on that probably within the next month and a half out to the community, because obviously we're also an open book organization, so everything gets shared there as well.
Yeah, and then just to answer the, if historic tax credits are utilized, if
Yeah.
both of our financial models, they would be able to support the entire project. The value that we're able to get for them is derived from the work that we do, but the funds go towards promoting the whole project together as a whole.
So could there be something where like the co-op comes with a request to support historic tax credits in addition to the, you know, the residential project? Are we looking at a scenario kind of like that?
Well, this is the historic tax credit world's a brand new one to me. Sure. That's one of the many people who don't quite understand the path yet. I'm learning them as they go. So as far as the path that we take,
Because
Doug to help
we
guide
will
the
be each performing the work in our parts of our condo. So John will be performing the historic work as it relates to renovating the ground floor, and the TCB will be performing the work historic work as it goes to renovating 2 through 5. We have we're like pulling from different buckets, so we're able to utilize tax credits based on the value of that work that we've done. So we could come together, or we could come separate. It's probably a more likely
Well, I would just
scenario.
hope that you have so much more expertise with that would help the co-op do it.
We are doing a project together in a way that's as cooperative as any project I've done.
Awesome.
So we've been working together as organizations nonstop just to get this far. So I have no worries, and I think we're pretty much partners on that one as far as how do we make this happen for everyone, along with mass development. It's like, how do we make this fantastic project happen?
And we have Doug here, who's the expert.
That's
who's
right.
gonna
And
show
we're-
us through this.
We're both committed to this project because each other organization are in them. This is a great project together, and I think independently this would be a really daunting project to take on, but we're really committed to the shared vision.
I don't want to monopolize things, but the other question I had was just an opportunity to talk about how the new construction part there of the residential. Do you want to talk for just a moment about the design choices you made there that relate to the sort of historic character revitalization of the other parts of the project?
Sure. So as I'm sure you're aware, it's generally frowned upon to build new construction right next to a historic building that looks exactly like the historic. So we did want to keep a distinct difference between the two. At the same time, we do want to keep more of a bit of that historic language, which we're certainly trying to keep. Do we have a rendering? But we have to also work within our means and within the design and portion of the building. So we are at the storefront level. We are trying to. We're still in very early schematic design at the moment, but we're trying to match similar storefronts to what's happening on the front of Wilson's in terms of the overall style of the storefronts, keeping the windows those relatively what's the word?
Simple punch opening.
Punched opening, thank you. Punched opening versus bands of windows, keeping the facade within. So the lower half of this facade here is currently envisioned as a dark brick, and then with a fascia band transitioning it to the upper floor materials, as well as a cornice at the top of the building that, while still modern, will call out the much more historical cornices that exist on the Wilson's building.
Great, thank you. It looked like from a parking perspective, you're a little short on what it's going to require for the residents.
So we are
At
in
least
the
according to town bylaws.
so according to so we're in the central commercial district,
Right.
which actually has an exemption for parking, so that we do not actually have to meet the minimum amount of parking.
So
We're
you're
providing as much
actually
as possible,
Okay.
but you are correct. We are not at. If we were elsewhere in town, we would need more parking.
So about how many resident parking spaces?
I believe we're at 38,
38.
Yeah.
It's full built out.
but all the bicycle parking you want.
Yeah, and no parking is under the purview here, but we have a much higher, almost double parking rate available here than we see utilized at like type properties in a downtown core.
And then I interrupted Tom because I get all excited when I look at this.
Do you have anything more that you wanted to show that I kind of?
We just have a little bit more detail on the front facade. It's not in color, but this is the front facade. So our responsibility is from here down, but we're going to rebuild that sign band that was existing here. There's steel columns behind the storefront in these locations, and so we were going to put decorative pilasters in front of them, and then this storefront here is going to be aluminum, and it'll probably be like a bronze, kind of a dark medium gray storefront to match. We have to go with the color that was there originally, which we don't know the exact color, but it's dark, so we're not going to do a white storefront. So this section right here, this big giant retail window on the second floor, Henry is charged with designing that, since our dividing line is right there. So I didn't draw it exactly right, and we have to work to coordinate this together, but they will be the same style. But again, you know, a few changes that we're going to make was the original storefront. These were really big pieces of plate glass. I think for cost reasons and for replacement reasons, we're probably going to split what was a big piece of plate glass into two pieces. Obviously, all this stuff has to get approved by the National Park Service, and we have detailed sections showing, you know, the relationship of this sign band to what we think was there before, and the relationship to the window heads to what we think was there before. But it is going to get modernized. One big change is going to be the store is going to be a power-operated door. So that'll be a little bit different style than what was there originally and what's there for Wilson's right now. And again, that's the central stair to the old one. These are the three identical storefronts. The center part, the entry door is the same, and the windows on either side are different sizes.
Will you have canopies or whatever?
Yeah, we'll have awnings on the
Awnings,
front.
thank you.
Yeah, yeah, we haven't really designed those yet. I don't know what they're going to be.
Pretty important. It's
It is.
facing. It gets really hot.
The columns.
Yep.
Those are original columns to the building.
Well,
The,
what's
are they iron,
behind
cast iron?
what's behind here? Yes, is an original steel column, but it's been it's the original steel was riveted, but it's had all these like various components welded to it. Like when they you know created this big picture window here, they took out all they didn't. There's no beam right here going across supporting the division between these two floors. So the real bearing point for this entire storefront is way up here. So those columns go all the way up through. We haven't been able to do like full demo on all this stuff. We've just been able to punch little holes in the
You don't
building.
really know what's going on
Yes.
until you
Well, I'm just wondering if
dig it open.
those columns might have any decorative features to them at all.
Well, that's going to be a national trust question because they wouldn't typically allow us to expose that steel. I think that because it probably wasn't originally exposed. And it's not like a decorative cast iron column.
Yeah.
And it was a riveted column with multiple parts put together with rivets. So,
With the final finish of.
what do you mean?
What would have been exposed in
Oh.
1880
So we actually,
or
this is
1873?
a photo from the 1912 storefront. You can actually see that the columns are actually enclosed in this
Oh,
photo.
behind the glass.
Yep.
Yeah.
But there are some interesting things that we
So it's like
discovered
the-
along the way. These are like pictures above the old Wilson's storefront or ceiling, drop ceiling. So there's a tin ceiling up there that's in really great shape. I mean, there's a few places where it's been torn up, but the ceiling in the front part of the Wilson space is like a big coffered ceiling. So it's got crown molding, tin crown molding, cornice all the way around in a coffered way. I don't have a plan of it, but there's a lot of beams in there that cross each other and form this great pattern on the ceiling. So you can see that's the ceiling there. You can see that this is the cornice that exists above there. I mean, there are various pipes along the way that penetrated it. And we're going to have some pipes that run below this. And we're still working on how we integrate all of our heating and air conditioning in there too. That's going to be a trick.
Work in progress.
Yeah,
So-
super cool. So that's one of the columns right there.
Yeah, this is a cast iron column that's inside of there.
So will that be visible?
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah. No, the ones in the front were not this style. The ones in the front were like
Yeah.
3 or 4 different pieces of steel riveted together.
Okay. Kind of like
Really a
box.
girder.
Yeah, I mean, they could have,
I-beam kind of
who knows what they were originally? They could have been replaced when, this big upper level window was put there. We don't know.
More like a girder than a column.
It is.
And so, I mean, it looks like clearly you've done a bit of work for sure in terms of looking at old photographs and things like that. I mean, for us, for sure, our purview, what really matters to us is that I'm looking here across the street, looking at that facade and trying to match that. I think that's where, at the end of the day, we're going to be really looking at that. And so whatever research you guys can do to try to unearth as much stuff and try to meet that original, 1920s, 30s look, I think would be the target, right?
Yeah, and as the store, as the interior of the store goes, one of the mandates of the membership in this, amongst many, was to try to have just get as much of this back as possible from the look of the store. A lot of people build these co-ops as these new looking stores, and our goal isn't that. Our goal is to how do we design a grocery store that's not only long, but how does it fit so it fits into a little different vibe altogether, and that flows into what you were saying earlier over how do we set this up so we can get as much attention to the historic value of this building itself. So this is an area we've been looking at for quite a while. Granted, a lot of that first floor is kept over the years. They have redone quite a bit of it.
Yeah.
So we're finding everything that we can.
Cool, very cool.
Yeah, one of the benefits of, probably one of the only benefits of the building being vacant is, Tom and John have been able to do more exploratory work than we had the luxury of when it was still, an active department store. So, some of those images that Tom had showed earlier, the tin ceiling, the columns, very exciting to see those elements and that they still survive under many layers of chipboard and other materials. Hopefully they'll see the light of day again.
We're really excited about keeping that tin ceiling. It is a tricky thing to do because these guys have apartments above us, so we've got to isolate not only their apartment people, and the noise that travels between them, but also all the plumbing that they have that comes down through our space. So.
Yeah.
Which must be a real challenge to be designing the first floor at one schedule, fast track and everything else.
Yeah, we're doing work to do. There will be a part of this project that supports both of ours that happens prior to both of us going in.
We're sharing mechanical engineer and structural engineer. So they are involved from the beginning, know each of our needs.
It's a very joint project for
It's great.
being separate projects.
Yeah, it's unique. It's a challenge, but it's worth it in the end. I think when this all comes together for what it does to the downtown, and also the model of these two organizations come together to do something like this in the community, that I hope to see reflected in many other different communities as well.
So will Mass Historic, you could do two separate reviews and NPS two separate reviews?
In some aspects, yes, but the hope is to sort of get the plans developed, even though the co-ops project is a little bit further along than TCB's. The hope is that the plans will be sufficiently developed that it can be presented as one project with two proponents.
And you're doing a spring committee or fall committee?
To be determined.
Very cool. So what's the next steps? When will we see you again?
So right now, John and I are working through our public permission process. So we will be going to the planning board the first week of May and the ZBA the second week of May for our site plan review, which was in a large scale development review, which is triggered by the housing. So assuming all that goes forward, I think then we obviously continue our joint work together. And I'll speak to the housing timeline. It's a very prescriptive but long timeline to secure financing. So we will be going in for competitive financing in January of next year, 2024. And then if we are awarded, probably in the spring of 2025, construction would start on the housing portion. And I'll let you speak
as
here.
far as the co-op perspective goes, we're hoping to start construction within the calendar year. We're currently at, we're all going through design now. We're in programming, which is the, what do you want to see? And then of course, our next step is showing it to the members and getting everyone's thoughts on what they want to see as well. And of course, as you say, there's a difficult process. How do we make it all work? And then I'd say probably about midsummer into the end of the summer, we'll look at finalizing the rest of the designs.
And as that relates to your commission and historic, our drawings are being developed by both teams every day, and so we hope to have we have to have a set quite far along for that submission for TCB's work, for that submission for public financing. So we hope that at the next iteration of drawings, we would come back here and align that with Doug's work to submit amendments for the pending applications that already exist on this project.
Okay.
So I'll be just a little bit ahead of Henry, and we're now developing detailed drawings for the storefront, and we can share those with you. Those are really geared towards Doug's submission to the National Park Service.
Well, can I just say this is so exciting and wonderful, and we've been waiting a long, long time.
So anybody out here want to buy a library? We have this really great library up there. It's a historic building. I think it really suits you guys great.
I think they have enough on their plate.
Yeah, we got
Good plug there.
Didn't hurt to ask.
Yeah, great. Well, I mean, thank you all really for being here.
Yes.
It's a very impressive presentation. It looks like an awesome project. And I'm looking at that graphic there, and I'm imagining that it's going to look just like that. And I hope you guys can do it to that as accurately as you can. It looks great. So, thanks again. Stay in touch and just reach out to us anytime.
Thank you.
Thanks again. Yeah.
Thank you for coming.
Don't quote me, I may be wrong. Thanks for coming. Thanks, appreciate it.
stick around and support you guys.
Right on.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Nice to see you.
Yeah.
That's yours.
Old fashioned drawings.
I know, well, I love to see it, yeah.
You don't have anything that fancy. Mac boards.
Yeah.
That's all.
Yeah. Quite a process for sure. Yeah.
I'm keeping mine.
You're keeping yours.
Keeping mine.
I'm keeping mine too.
No. Okay.
Picture of you in the picture. Like, you can put the back and do it. Put whatever else in there.
It's the way.
Yeah. Yeah, hey, get it while you can.
Nobody exposed too much like that.
Yeah, definitely.
Oh, maybe it is.
There's a big undertaking.
Maybe it is. Oh, I don't know. Maybe it's worked there. Maybe that's
Nearly 40 years.
Oh, really?
In which
Oh, yeah.
the Museum of Art.
Oh,
It's such a great resource.
Starting out
The
Check it out, yeah.
and
Oh, yeah.
quickly moved over to the Security and Guest Services Director of
Yeah.
the Museum of Art. Awesome. It's a really nice place.
okay.
Or was I even here last week? Did I miss something?
No, you were here.
Yes, I can.
I just went back and looked and I didn't see him. Well, we'll revisit that.
I'll send them the correct.
We'll, yeah, we'll, yeah.
I can send them, we can always do that.
Thanks again, guys. Yeah. Thank you. So, folks from Just Roots,
Yeah,
you're up.
we're
Thank you for being patient. That's usually
I
not
can't
so.
believe we lucked out to see that though.
It was kind of cool though. I know. It was,
Yeah, no, it's
and,
fine. You can
know, I'm sure they're going to do that presentation on a much grander scale, but it was kind of intimate, like a kind of a private viewing. So I really appreciate it. I do mean it truly. It's kind of cool. Anyway, welcome to. You got everybody's names?
I think you guys were on that list, right?
Yeah.
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 Thank you all for having us. My name's Laura Fisher. I'm the Executive Director at Just Roots. I've been with the organization about 8 months now. I grew up in Western Mass, and in fact my maternal great-grandparents immigrated to Greenfield from Southern Holland at the turn of the last century. And my great-grandfather was a machinist here, so I have a lot of connection to the area. And I recently found myself running this nonprofit community farm up off of Leiden Road. And so the organization, I'm not sure how familiar you are with Just Roots, it's been around a little over a decade, and it's grown significantly in programming in the last 5 years especially. So we're providing a lot of community resources, including community garden plots, lots of on-farm programming, several hundred share local CSA with multiple distribution points, and we sublease some of the farm to other local growers.
Like the tree community.
Yes. So it's a really great community space, and we have a lease through the city through 2048. And so when I approached the mayor's office about some improvements we're intending to make to our barn space, they suggested that we come before your commission just to let you know what we're envisioning, what we're thinking, where we are in the process. Just a little bit of history about the farm. We are on the site of the former Greenfield Town Farm or Port Farm. So this property was deeded to the city back in the mid-1800s by, believe it or not, a guy named Justin Roop.
Really?
Yeah, really.
I think he's actually, I knew that guy from Scouts.
There are roots around. Yeah, yeah.
He was. I did anyway.
So we're now operating this property. It's 61 acres total. Meryl can talk a little bit more about the farming that's happening on it. But we're ultimately stewarding the 61-acre parcel. It has not been used as a poor farm since, I'd say about 1935, which is when Social Security stepped in and sort of replaced the need for municipal town and poor farms. That being said, there are a lot around here, and the concept of Just Roots is very replicable. So we're here before you today to tell you a little bit about our proposed barn renovation project. We have 2 barns that we are leasing through the city, and I'll pass this around. We don't have any big fancy presentations, but that's what we refer to as the North Barn or the main barn. And we also have this sort of side barn that was built off of it that is not utilized in the same way that this barn is currently being utilized. And as I said, we've grown significantly. We're using the space as a farm for growing, washing, storage, aggregation, distribution, programming. And this barn is just very dated, and it needs some help to get to where we feel comfortable using it in a really efficient way for our programming. And so we'll talk a little bit about a request that we just submitted to the state for what's called Food Security Infrastructure Grant Funding, FSIG. We asked for about $500,000, just a cool $500,000. And the total project for phase 1, what we're proposing is just shy of $700,000. So we'll be fundraising the remainder of that if and when we receive that funding. And the proposal is largely one of restoration and preservation, and not so much a total tear down or replacement. There's a lot about the barn that's really beautiful, including an old slate roof on the main portion, but it also does need a lot of work. And so we're happy to answer questions you have. We're happy to have you up if you want to come for a site visit, check it out. We're also concurrently doing a lot of historical research about the property. One of our board members is a public historian and has been pulling up records about, the history of the place, its use as a poor farm, and so we're trying to better understand the history of the place as we think about restoring it and what it's being used for. So I'm happy to have Meryl, who's our Director of Farm Operations, our head farmer, talk a little bit about what's going on the property and what the vision for this phase of renovation or restoration is going to look like.
Yeah, so there's the main barn that you saw the picture of, and that runs basically east to west, and then this other barn is attached to the main barn. It's a smaller kind of what we're calling the auxiliary barn that runs north to south. And that barn and this back barn as well was not part of the original lease that Just Roots had with the city. And so we only had access and a lease to the main barn going east to west. So there was some like roof improvements made and some work done in there, but we didn't have a lease or access to those other buildings. So in the last 12 years, nothing has been done to them. And so the place where the 2 barns are connected has really deteriorated, and the second floor has started to fall in, and just the weather damage where the 2 barns are
Describing
connected.
my house.
It's really deteriorated, and it took an even like darker turn in 2021 with that rainy year. So it's just kind of the rapidness of the deterioration we're noticing. So at the end of 2021 is when we signed the new lease. So now we have access to both of these barns, and that's when we started to take a look inside, really kind of bust open the padlock that was there. And mostly there's just old swimming pool stuff in there that the town owns. So the main barn has had some work. So we were able to in 2019 actually write all 12 pillars in the basement of that barn. It used to be super soft and like bouncy when you walked in the second floor. So we actually started with that and lifted and like righted the peak of that roof, which has been kind of step 1. And we hung out there for a year. Then we started renovating the basement, and the town actually helped us to excavate out all these cow stanchions for milking that had already partially been taken out. So they took that out with like some in-kind donation work, and then we hung out some more. And then last year we did get $60,000 in the second round of this food security infrastructure grant funding, and that allowed us to pour a concrete floor and put new lighting in the basement. So now we've actually moved towards a more food safe aggregation space, wash and pack space. We have 2 new walk-in coolers there. So that's kind of where we're at. We started in the basement and now we're moving our way up.
Just the basement of the barn?
Yeah, this is like basically where it's kind of the ground floor here. And so there's ground floor level access,
Right.
and then there's also first floor level access.
I get you.
And so the first floor has been storage. It's been our like kind of very temporary, we thought, but become permanent distribution area and mini farm store. It's just like where we do our CSA distribution and where we have all of our storage and walk-in freezers, all that stuff. And the floor is pretty gnarly. It's just like hard to move any kind of cart around or whatever. So as we've increased from, probably 60 shares to about 500 shares that we do out of there, we're moving in a ton of food from other farms and a lot of meat from other farms. So we're looking at what we asked the city for, or the state for this year was to help us with that like second floor. So lights, upgrade electric, fix the floor or redo the floor depending on the contractor that we go with. Some south facing windows. So there really is only 2 of those windows are letting any light in. This is south side of the barn, which served the barn originally, but we can barely see, and we have all these funky lights in there hanging up everywhere. So just doing some kind of like transom windows along the south side. What else? Upgrading windows, and then some structural repairs that need to happen sort of under heavy coolers that were put in the barn over the last 10 years that we've been there. And slate repair for the roof. So we definitely looked into like what could we repair it, do we have to tear it down, and we were told that we could repair it and it's not in too bad shape.
Okay.
And then the auxiliary barn, we're looking at basically like stopping it from getting worse. That's kind of where we're at with this grant ask. And so we're looking at having a deconstruction company come in and take away all of the rotten material and like especially around the separation. Basically like at the place where the 2 barns come in, I would say there's like 10 to 15 feet in is like the major rotten spots, and especially on the like sort of second floor. And the rest of it's looking pretty good. And so I think that they can come in and remove some of that material, repair where the buildings are connected, fix the foundation. There's a nice bow on, there's like basically a retaining wall here, and a lot of driving has happened over time. And so there's a nice bow that we're gonna have to fix, and the bottom windows are askew. So we kind of need to like fix the foundation, patch the roof for now, probably just like maybe put a tin roof on, just like pause things, get rid of the gross stuff, pull out the electric stuff, maybe frame up some windows and fix some walls, and probably pull the siding off. There's of course like lead paint probably on this structure in general. And so just get it to a place where it's not gonna get worse, and that gives us a moment to do some fundraising to think about how we want to use the space and probably not change the uses from agricultural uses. I don't think we're gonna go down like a big use changed road of this building, but we'd like to at least not have it get any worse. So.
Yeah, we're at kind of a point where it's a decision between either pulling it down or like trying to stabilize and hold it. And I think that the cheaper option certainly is to try to do what we're trying to do, which is maintain it and eventually have that space to use for our operations, for storage, and just overall make the whole place a little more functional as we're growing. And so there's some amount of efficiency upgrades and just systems upgrades that need to happen. But the way I see this project, it's sort of like, let's secure the envelope of both barns and let's, keep things more food safe and allow our staff the ability to like move a pallet jack over the floor without it like, I don't know, going totally off the rails. So we're just looking at, I mean, these are all very basic things, but it does get expensive. And so that's where we're at. We don't have any decision from the state yet, but we have been successful in the past And the governor and the lieutenant governor and half of their cabinet just came out to make a big announcement about FSIG in front of our barns.
Yeah.
So I hope
Yeah,
that means
I
that.
recognize you showed it
Yeah.
over, right? So that's.
And it didn't fall down while they were standing.
Yeah.
I was worried about it, but we.
Well, that's-
yeah.
So,
Endured.
so
That's a big
what's,
deal to have
what's the
there.
vintage of the barn, you know?
I'd have to look at some records.
What was the question?
What year?
How old is it?
Oh, so the main barn was, I think, built in like 1870s, and it was across the street, and then it was moved. I think it I want to say like 1910, and that's when that side auxiliary barn was built, and that secondary barn doesn't have a slate roof; it has an asphalt roof, and I'm not. Yeah, so they're two different ages.
Yeah, they're two
Is it
different.
post and beam?
Not really. It's like a version of that, but it's like not as old. It's like
Right.
it looks more new.
But
like
the
a-
1870 part is supposed to be-
even so, like there's some parts of it that do look like post and beam, and then other parts that just look like they were trying to look like post and beam. I don't know. You guys should come out.
There was
Yeah.
a lot of sawn lumber available at that time,
Mhm.
so they wouldn't have needed to use that method necessarily.
Mhm.
They had, by 1870s, there was, lumber was available sawn here and also from away by train, so.
Maybe that's why. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it's, you know, I mean, I think, it sounds really cool what you're doing, you know, I love Just Roots, you know, and all that stuff. And I think that the barn is historic, you know, in my opinion, you know, not just because of its age, but also because of its use and its kind of continued use, you know, I mean, you say the poor farm and it just it kind of, right, draws up memories,
Yeah.
somewhat romantic, whatever, about like old times and how the community supported folks back in the day, and the fact that it's still there and it's kind of serving in this function tells a great story.
Yeah.
And I think you guys should apply for CPA funding
That's on my list.
next year.
You should, absolutely.
Because
Yeah.
it's a really good candidate for lots of funding
Yeah.
for all that, and I'd love to see the barn totally renovated,
Yeah.
by all means.
How's it heated?
So we have a heated space. This is part of the issue, and so we're hoping to condition this auxiliary barn if that's the route that we go.
There's no heated space now. You space heaters
It's
and
a
stuff?
barn.
It's just
It's
a barn,
like
dude.
the
Oh, I know, but they have to
basements,
work in there in the winter.
part of the we do go year round, and so that's been a really tricky aspect of what we do. So part of the basement fixing is we do now have like a shop heater that we're gonna hang.
Okay.
So we're trying to make it
Workshops.
workshop heated in the
Oh,
winter,
nice.
but it's been we've been going year round now. This is our fourth winter
Yeah.
of distributing year round, and it's rough. It's definitely rough on the farmers. So
I don't know anything that's colder than a barn in winter.
it is
Yeah.
rough. Yeah, even this week it was just like bone chilling in
Yeah.
there.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
So it's my house.
Here we go with the house again.
Or house, yeah.
My house was built in 1870.
Oh, yeah.
One of a famous bricklayer
Oh, cool.
who basically built Prey bricks.
Oh, press.
Yeah.
Basically, he built, the owner of Prey Bricks built my house, and then the subsequent two houses, and then there are other houses in the area, and the horses were kept in barn, and the wagon was kept. We have a 3-level barn that the horses were kept. You can see the actual, the windows for the horses. Is still there.
That's cool.
So what are you guys looking for from us?
We were simply asked, like the mayor's office just said, go before them, let them know what your plans are.
Yeah.
I just figured I would offer, you know, a site visit if you guys want to come out.
Absolutely.
We had the city planners come out a couple of times. We've walked through this with him, and yeah, we just want to increase knowledge about what we're doing, and we would love, you know, support as we, you know, look for fundraising, whether it's CPA money or, you know, another family foundation out there somewhere who's into historical preservation. But as I said, we are also sort of simultaneously uncovering the history of the poor farm, the history of the land. And so that work's not yet done, and I'm hoping that, you know, we would be able to share with you whatever we end up with.
Good.
Great.
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah,
Very
happy to
cool.
answer any questions you have. And you have my email, and if you guys want to come out for a visit, we're more than happy to have you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Cool.
I'm sure
Right on.
we will. maybe we'll try to plan something and
Yeah.
a bunch of us all come out.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, and if you have any questions for us, feel free just to reach out. We're trying to be open about all of it. Cool.
Looks great. Good luck.
All right,
on the
thanks for
project.
having us.
Yeah,
Yeah.
thanks guys. Ooh, wow.
Oh my God, yeah. How cool is that for a meeting to actually
Yeah.
have these organizations, right?
I know, right? We didn't plan this.
You did fine.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Nice. You want to take a picture of that? You sure you're good?
I'm familiar with the barn from picking up my
Me too.
farm
I
share,
know.
so.
I want to burst into a chorus of everything's up to date in Greenfield City.
Yeah.
We could. Wow. Whew. Well, I'm pretty white myself. That's a lot. Okay.
Can I have an
Go ahead.
We got the Mass Historic Grant, survey and planning.
Oh, awesome.
Yes.
I think they asked for 25 and they got 20. But it's a match, so it'll be a $40,000 survey study that.
This is for the library.
No.
What do you,
No.
I didn't hear what you
Just
said.
up
Okay.
I heard the grant, but I didn't hear anything else.
Athena wrote a grant to Mass Historic to update the existing historic property survey.
Oh, the survey, okay.
Yeah.
Yes.
So of the 550 that we already have, they're gonna review the documentation of those and then add a bunch. And so there'll be a consultant hired.
Yeah.
I mean, there'll be an RFP and then they'll get hopefully some
Sure.
proposals and the consultant will be hired and we will have work to do reviewing their work. And I volunteered to be the local project coordinator with
Good.
Eric Twerk, so I'll need some help.
What will that look like? And
It's a year-long project. Hopefully we'll get the RFP out in May and get some results in June, and then they'll start, and they have to be done by June of the following year, June 24, which is always a race to get it all done. But anyway,
and we kind of review along the way.
yeah, I mean, there's a lot of judgment involved in which properties should be included in the survey and which shouldn't, and
How much it should be expanded.
yeah,
Yeah.
right, and,
And
where
also,
to
right,
put the information and how to.
Actually, is there a possibility of creating more historic districts also?
Yes,
Right.
yes, and I know that also Athena would like to lay the groundwork for a certified local historic district,
Yeah.
which would then make us a certified local government or community,
Community.
CLC or
Yeah.
something,
Yeah.
and that then we'd be in a
Part of it,
much
yeah.
better position to get other grants and
Right.
funding. So
Which is
yeah,
a
and
huge
that I mean I've stepped on that hornet's nest before, and
Well, yeah.
it's hard to
Yeah.
convince people that the government should help
Mm.
them decide how to renovate their house or
Mm.
update their house
Yeah.
or whatever.
Mm.
I mean, not house, but building, and so hopefully it would be some portion of downtown Greenfield. Anyway, that's down the road, but,
Great.
but it's
No,
very
very
exciting that
awesome.
Athena got it.
Yes.
She did apply. I mean, the city did apply also
I
for
know, that's, I got
feasibility
confused.
study for the library,
That's still in
Yeah.
advance, yeah.
and that we don't know
I have
about.
a question.
Yeah.
Does that survey include identifying historic markers, signage, or anything?
It has a monument
Monuments,
section.
yeah.
It has a
Yeah.
monument section, and
Yeah.
it has a district section, and then it has a historic feature section in addition to the buildings.
Archaeology is not included,
Hmm.
but
Some of our signage I've noticed lately could use some help.
well, it won't improve those.
Yeah.
It's
It
a
would.
continuing
It would
conversation.
identify them though.
Yeah, it
Which
could
story-
identify.
which
photograph
I guess.
them,
Yeah.
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 You gotta identify
To
and
give you an
help 'em.
example, there's a sign, how anybody would ever know for Cheapside Landing,
Mm-hmm.
down there at the intersection, and it is completely overgrown with
Yeah.
vines. I mean, you
Right.
cannot even see it anymore.
That wouldn't fall under this
Yeah.
grant.
No,
No.
no, that's a state marker, isn't it?
Well, that's what I was curious about, because I know the state in the process
big
of,
cast iron ones, right?
yeah, renovating some of those
There's
signs.
if you go online, there's this list of all those markers
Yeah.
from the state.
They've been
website.
cataloging them all.
There's
yeah.
one for like Russell there.
Yeah,
at the-
right.
Yep, and then there's one from.
Eunice,
Yeah,
Yeah,
there's
so
well, there's
you're-
one. Yeah, it's
yeah.
right up at the corner of Silver
Turner.
and Elm Street there.
Yeah.
Hey, but anyway, there's a number of them around.
Yeah.
They're like all over.
Yeah.
Back in I think '36 they did it.
Kiwanis put up some.
Yeah, but those are the ones. These are the ones from the state.
Yeah, but I mean, Kiwanis, like the Turner's one, I think is Kiwanis, but.
Yeah.
And the one up at Gill at the end of the bridge there,
Yeah.
that was paid for, is owned by PVMA.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Well, that's a whole signage
It's a
thing.
false
yeah.
fight marker.
Well, I guess I could talk about the CPC. I'm sure you guys probably saw it in the paper, whatever. We
Did
put out-
well, did well.
did pretty well. I don't have to go over the whole thing, but a lot of projects were funded. The historical ones were funded,
Mhm.
so the process is basically complete for now.
Mhm.
It was a lot of work.
But I'd like to suggest that next year, we figure out a way to apply for a CPC grant for signage. We've been talking about signage and kicking that can down the road for at least 2 years now.
Yeah, I mean,
And nothing's happening about it, so.
unfortunately, I'm on too many committees and commissions and things to do anything. Apparently, so I would recommend
I'm just
that.
putting it on the agenda for next year.
That
that's all. Yeah.
private citizens or people like I mentioned, the Just Roots, like,
Yeah.
dude, you guys got to apply because honestly, there were 14 proposals and 10 of them were from the rec department.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, and that's because they need the money and they've got tons of projects.
Well,
So
our
they
job
wanna-
would be to get somebody to adopt it.
right, and
Right.
that's the thing is
But
to
it
try
could
to
be- it could be the town, right?
yeah, and it could be if it's town property or anything like that, it's gonna be the town because they would have to be the ones that put it in the ground and oversee the actual installation and
Right.
moving the allocation and buying of those signs, and, that whole piece of it. It's not like
Right.
they would be a partner in the project
Right.
for sure.
Right.
But it could be any old dude could just say, hey, we're going to do this. We need, and
We know any old dudes?
I know.
Few
So
around I can think of.
yeah, it would be really cool for people to do that. I think once this comes out, and I'm hoping that some of the projects will be pretty high visibility, like Beacon Field and downtown stuff where everybody sees them. That was a big thing for me, and that people will be like, hey, this is kind of cool,
Mhm.
and see CPC as a real benefit to everybody in town. And then they'll next year they'll come forward with projects, more projects and different projects.
Yeah, yeah, more people.
Yeah, stuff like that. Anyway, so it was good process.
And Greenfield Historic Society or Historic Society of Greenfield got their money.
Yep,
They did, yeah.
they did. Yep.
And these guys got their money too.
They even got their money,
Yeah.
and the
Clark County.
fairgrounds got 31,000.
Right.
So it was like a
Yeah.
partial funding of that. And pickleball got 50,000. They were asking for 300. And yeah, well, yeah, yeah. So, but a lot of them did get at least partially, funded.
Tiddlywinks got $5,000.
Yeah. Well, and if, of course,
Team Tiddlywinks, yeah.
the CSO got money, and
Yeah.
that's a huge project too.
Yeah.
And I don't know if they'll come before us at all for that. Probably not really. But that's from what I've seen, they're going to take part of an existing structure
Mhm.
that may or may not be historic, and the
Yeah, we should look, see if it is. The
Yeah,
Del Padre building.
yeah, it's the one that's across the
Yeah.
street from what was Miller's Falls Tools, and there's what looks like to me like I believe is an old warehouse from Miller's Falls Tools. It's not that old
Yeah,
per se.
might be 20s.
I don't even think it's that old honestly, but I've never been inside of it. I just kind of
Concrete.
yeah.
Yeah,
Anyway, that's I think it'd probably be
we should
demo.
check.
Yes.
I would imagine.
No, I think they're renovating.
I don't know. They're gonna put a house in the middle,
Yeah.
and then there's the other building.
It's a rambling, shambling piece of junk as what it is right now, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Anyway.
it's pretty much fallen down.
No, if we're talking about the same building.
Maybe.
One that sets back though.
Yeah.
It
It's
sets
a
back a
long,
little.
narrow building, sits back.
Yeah.
and you
It looks
run.
kind of rough. I don't think it's. I don't think it's actually that
Is
rough.
that Bickford's? What, I think that might have been one of those tool companies at one time.
I don't know. Yeah,
Anyway, we should find out if we have
we'll have to
anything
look, we should look
say.
into it
Mm.
just for the sake of it.
Can we
Maybe there's
ask
good
Eric?
sections
You know,
of
it
the
was
building.
part of Miller's Falls because I remember seeing my stepfather coming down that way because
Yeah.
we used to work there,
Yeah.
and he came down that way.
Oh, is this the building on, is it the gray one that's like kind of set back?
It's set
from the
back
road?
from the
Yeah,
road.
okay, yeah.
And it's. I want to say it's like red and green. Or something.
Yeah, or
It's two levels.
gray with green garage
two
doors.
levels.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, I know
And
what building you're
looks-
talking
I'm
about.
pretty sure it's just dry warehouse space. I think that's all it ever was.
Yeah, I mean, I remember it was for sale a
It
few
was for
years
sale for a
ago,
long,
yeah.
long time.
Yeah.
I don't remember if anyone
But-
ever
but
bought
the
it or they
main-
gave up.
The homeless shelter now is part of it, and that's
Okay.
the Del Padre building, which I think is probably in the inventory.
Oh, yeah,
Yeah.
So we
Yeah.
might want to say,
that's true.
come on in, tell us what you're doing.
Yeah, but I think once they, anyway, it's a big project.
Yep.
So, the Peter Miller Preservation Award.
Yeah.
I forgot where we left off with that, but I put Zacchio's name forward.
We had talked
We're gonna
about
go.
Zacchio's.
I think we were,
is
did
doing
we
a
vote on that?
No, you were
No.
gonna talk to him,
Yeah.
see what he thought.
Yeah, so maybe you need to talk to him.
Because
see
whether
what the
it
deal
should
is.
be awarded to him or his wife.
I did talk, well, I did
or
talk
the
to Barb,
team.
and she thought it was a great idea, and,
Oh.
so she was in favor of it.
Okay. All right,
so,
and she
but-
would be in favor of being on it as well?
Yeah, right, they're
There's a
now,
couple, right?
well, they're divorced, and,
Oh, jeez, I didn't know
you
that.
didn't know that? Well,
No, I'm sorry.
they're divorced, so she actually said that she would wanna, to have it in her maiden name, which I said I thought.
But
would be-
both of them.
Right, so they would
Yeah.
have Mark Zacchio and then Barb, whatever her,
Okay, so if you would put it,
I'll flesh that out.
if you would give me a note with her full name, and I'll put that in the minutes,
Yeah,
and then we'll act on
yeah,
it, okay?
yeah.
Good.
Great.
I'm just looking back to March.
I got a quick
Yeah.
one. I got something through email from I think it was the Western Mass Historical Commission Coalition about a workshop, a virtual Zoom workshop
Yeah.
or meeting on Thursday, April 20th. And there are gonna be some presentations from some other local historical commissions where Whately did a hidden history digital map, which I looked at, and it's very interesting.
Is that at 10 o'clock?
Yes.
Yeah, I signed up for
And
it.
spreading the word, developing a self-guided walking tour is one of the talks
Oh,
by
very
Great
cool.
Barrington. I'll send the announcement around, and people who want to sign up to it can sign up for it. It looks like it's free, and it looks like you have to register in advance through the state.
Okay,
I did.
Thank you.
all right.
I don't have anything else.
No more demo applications.
No. Good, no. So,
Couple of things, I bring from the Battlefield Commission. One is a couple of interesting facts. One is they did metal detecting for musket balls. And the musket ball trail that they follow, believe it or not, but it's interesting because the musket ball trail is the trail of the retreat.
Yeah.
Sure.
See, so there was fighting going on all the way from the falls, the falls, all the way, and that musket ball trail goes all the way to the ford over the Greenfield River.
yeah,
At the other end of town.
yeah, kind of where the plaque is.
Yeah, and so that retreat went at least that far, and I don't know if they've done the other shore and gone up into Deerfield or not. So that was a long running battle,
Yeah,
which of course, as you know, if you know anything about military, a long running retreat is the worst thing for the retreating soldiers and the best thing for warriors, which is what the Indians were, okay, as opposed to soldiers. So soldiers always lose out in that kind of a battle, whereas stand-up battles, soldiers usually beat warriors. So at any rate, this thing lasted all the way through there. There's hundreds of burials all around that part of town.
Really?
Which have
Hundreds,
been
really?
Burials, which have been, now they're that style of burial, which often involve cremation, okay, burning the bodies. But at any rate, they've been detected by ground penetrating radar. And there's a whole bunch of maps of that thing, of that stuff. So that is all going on. The thing that I brought up last time was the deeding over of a piece of property. It's in the White Ash Swamp. It's it's in a wetlands. It can't be developed. And Ceruzzi, who owns it, promised to deed it over to the Nolenbeka and the tribes,
Right.
but never did. And so the people from the battlefield talked to the mayor here in town. And
Yeah.
she said that she supported it but didn't want to get involved in it. Okay, so the question for us is, do we want to write a letter to Ceruzzi, or do we want write a letter to the mayor or something supporting this or not? We want to get involved in. Basically, it's property that Ceruzzi got in their Mackin deal,
Yeah.
and the Mackin stuff, and they hung on to that even though they can't use it. And they have not deeded it over, which they promised to do, to the Wissatenawag and the Norumbeka project and the tribes.
I mean, I think we would support it in spirit for sure. I don't want to get involved between
Nobody does.
a developer and the town.
Should we write a letter or just?
Why not write a
Well, what
Agree
about the
to-
native
Yeah.
people? Are they gonna, I mean, if they put forward a letter to the property owner,
Uh-huh.
I think I would recommend that we write a letter in support of that action.
Yeah,
You know, by the
I want to see them
parties who are
write a
involved.
letter or come to see us.
In
or
other words,
something.
we don't want to be the instigators.
Right. Yeah.
No,
I'm not
all we'd be
exact-
doing is
Should be a
supporting
party
the,
to it.
the coalition of tribes and people that make up the Battlefield Commission, as well as the
Norumbeka.
Norumbeka project. They're
yeah.
pushing this. They'd
Okay.
like to
Yeah.
get that land back. And one of the reasons they like to get it is because they believe there are burials on it, or there were.
Wow.
Yeah. So my question is, have they tasked you as a liaison? to-
Negative.
That's what I'm saying.
Maybe we should.
No,
I don't want to. I
Not
don't want to
formally.
jump the.
I have asked in the meeting if we wanted to do support, would they welcome it? And they said yes, but it's not. They have not asked me to do that.
Yeah. My thought is that if they ask, we would support them.
But we require a request.
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
That seems like the right way flow of
Okay.
information.
To do that. The other thing that came up in this, which I wasn't aware of, but before the dam in Turner's Falls, Barton Cove was not Barton Cove, it was Barton Fields. That was farmed.
Yeah.
Wow.
It was dry land.
Huh.
There was an old oxbow there, and when they backed up the water with the dam, it flooded up and made Barton Cove, and part of that old oxbow then forms part of the shore of Barton Cove. But I didn't know that up until the time that they dammed the river to flood. I don't know I think it was when they built the power canal, built the dam higher. It backed up the water there, and so all of those fields, and there was a village there. There was an Indian village, and that got flooded. And the village was part of the battlefield.
Yeah, but they would have dammed that up and done that 100 years after.
1870s.
Yeah, so there was no Native Americans living there.
Oh, I don't know.
1870. I wouldn't think
Well,
so.
all I know is it was being farmed at that.
Yeah, right, but it was. To your point, that land where it was probably historically pretty impactful place is underwater.
That's right.
I think it's.
It is pretty shallow in there.
It is, and that's I didn't realize that had been dry
Yeah,
land. If you look
kinda
at the old
shallow,
maps
but
of Gill,
you wouldn't want. It's a lot of. It's pretty reedy.
Yeah,
If you look at
right.
the
You
old
get
maps
lost
of
in it.
Gill, it shows clearly that that's dry land.
Yeah, that makes
Yeah.
perfect sense. Of course. Yeah,
Yeah.
I say that.
Didn't know that. Anyway, I'm done.
Thank you.
Good.
That's awesome.
Glad you're involved, Tim.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah,
great.
thank you.
All right, guys. I will take a motion.
Motion to adjourn.
Seconded.
Second.
Seconded by Doug, all in favor?
Aye.
So moved.
Good.
Thanks, guys, that was cool.
Yeah, it was
Very
fun.
interesting.
Yeah, it's kinda nice to feel like we're involved in a big project like the
Yeah, always.
Wilson's thing.